Hi, good morning class. Welcome to my next lecture of managerial economics, that is lecture 7 of unit 3. So in this lecture we are going to have a discussion about the three topics, that is law of supply, elasticity of supply and uses of elasticity of supply. Before moving towards the lecture, I would like to revise about what is law of demand. So if we talk about law of demand, so there is a inverse relationship between the price and quantity demanded. But if we talk about law of supply, so there is a direct relationship between the price and quantity demanded. Second point, in law of demand, there is increase in demand with decrease in price and decrease in demand with increase in price. But in law of supply, there is increase in supply with increase in price, and there is decrease in supply with decrease in price. So if we talk about the law of supply, so there is a direct relationship between the price of the commodity and the goods supply. But if we talk about in law of demand, so there is an inverse relationship between the price and quantity demanded. That means with increase in price there is decrease in demand, and with increase in price there is increase in demand. So this is the concept which we are going to follow in this lecture. So the main point which you have to focus is that you should know that what is the basic difference between the law of supply and law of demand. Law of demand is for customers and law of supply is for the producers and sellers who want to sell their goods at a particular price in a market, and customer will buy more goods at less price, but suppliers or producer will purchase more goods at more price, not at less price. So that's why in law of demand there is an indirect relationship between the price and quantity demanded, and in law of supply there is an direct relationship between the price and quantity supplied by the producer or supplier. So now let's proceed with the lecture. Meaning of supply. Supply refers to the quantity of a commodity which producers or sellers are willing to produce and offer for sale at a particular price in a given market at a particular period of time. That means if we talk about that, what is supply? So supply means where the producers or sellers are willing to produce the goods and they are ready to sell the goods in a market at a particular price and at a particular period of time. So this is known as supply. Supply is the willingness and ability of producers to create goods and services to take them to market. That means if we talk about the goods, so here we talk about the finished goods. Finished goods are those goods which are converted from raw material into finished products. Suppose if I want to manufacture this marker, board marker, then what are the raw materials that is needed for this marker? That is the plastic, the ink, and that special ink with which the instructions are being printed on the body of the marker. So these are some of the raw materials which are required for the production of board marker. So in the same way, if we talk about goods, that means here we are talking about the finished good. That means those goods which are converted from raw material into finished products for sale in the market. So that is known as the goods. So what is the role of supply in the finished goods? That means once the marker is ready, now the next step, there should be some market where we can sell this board marker. So board marker is a commodity. Now we required some place where I can sell this commodity. So place, I am talking about the market. So I need some market where I should go and I will sell my product, and my product is the board marker. So here I am the supplier, and the person who is purchasing from me, he is the customer. So I am the supplier of the board marker, and the person who purchases from me, he or she should be the customer for me. So supply is the willingness and ability of producers to create goods and services to take them to market. Supply is positively related to price, given that at higher price there is an incentive to supply more, as higher prices may generate increased revenue and profits. That means at high prices supplier will supply more and more of goods because it helps in generating their revenue and it helps in increasing their profit margin. Definition: according to Thomas, the supply of goods is the quantity offered for sale in a market at a given time at various prices. That means Thomas has described that supply of goods is some quantity which is offered to sell in the market at a particular price and at a particular period of time. In law of supply and law of demand, price plays a very important role, because on the price level the demand or the supply of the commodity depends. The three important aspects of supply are: supply is a desired quantity, that in how much quantity you want to supply the goods. Second, supply is always explained with reference to price. That means there is a direct relationship in the price and quantity supplied, time during which it is offered for sale. That means up to what time you have to supply your goods to sell in the market. Basics of supply: when the price of the commodity is higher, then the producer or seller will supply greater amount of the commodity. So here you can, no need to get confused. If we talk about the law of demand, in law of demand, at high prices the customer will purchase less goods, and at lower prices the customer will purchase more goods. Why? Because there is a inverse relationship between the price and quantity demanded. But if we talk about the law of supply, where price also plays a very important role, so when the price of the commodity is high, the supplier will supply more, and when the price of the commodity is low, the supplier will supply less. Why? Because high prices helps in increasing his profit margin. Increase in price results in increase in supply, decrease in price results in decrease in supply. The price and the amount supplied is positively correlated. That means there is a positive or there is a direct relationship between the price of the goods and the quantity supplied. The law of supply derives the relationship between the price of the commodity and quantity supplied. According to this law, other things remaining the same, the supply of a commodity is directly related with the price of the commodity. So in both the law of demand and law of supply, price plays a very important role, and on price the law of demand and law of supply actually works. According to Dole, higher the price, the greater the quantity supplied, or lower the price, the smaller the quantity supplied. In other words, other things remaining the same, when the price of the commodity increases, then its quantity supplied increases, and when decreases, quantity supplied also decreases. Why? Because there is a positive relationship between the price of the commodity and the quantity supplied. Suppose if you are a supplier, तो आप किस प्रोड्यूसर को ज़्यादा गुड सप्लाई करेंगे, जो आपको ज़्यादा प्राइस देगा या जो आपको कम प्राइस देगा? ऑब्वियस है दैट यू विल सप्लाई मोर टू द पर्सन हु इज़ पेइंग high prices in respective to the person who is paying you for the goods at lower prices. So there is a direct or positive relationship between the price and quantity supplied of a commodity. Assumptions of law of supply. That means there are some assumptions on which the law of supply work that we have already assumed कि ये ऐसा होगा. It is assumed that incomes of buyers and sellers remains constant. The taste and preferences of the buyers and sellers remains constant. If we talk about the taste and preferences, that means where we are habitual of using one commodity from last so many of years, and we are not going to change our taste. So that becomes the taste preference. If that commodity is available, then we prefer to buy that commodity, and if it is not available in the market due to some reason, then our preference is we will go for the substitute, that is the next best alternative present in the market which satisfy our need. Cost of all the factors of production assumed to be constant. Cost of factors of production. So what are the factors of production? Those factors which helps in the production of the goods, that is from converting raw material into finished goods. Those factors which helps in the production of a particular commodity. So those factors are known as the factors of production. For example, land, labor, machine, capital. So all these things can be regarded as the factors of production. So it is already assumed that the factors of production remains constant. The level of technology remains constant. There is no change in the number of producers and no change in government policy about taxation and subsidies. So these are some of the assumptions on which the law of supply actually works. Supply schedule. Supply schedule is a tabular representation of the data in which we used to have price and quantity supplied in a table form or in a tabular form. So the tabular representation of the data is known as the supply schedule. A supply schedule is a statement which gives different quantity of a commodity that are offered for sale at different price at a given time. So if we talk about supply schedule, so in one column there is price of the commodity, and in the second column there is quantity supplied. So when we present these data in a tabular form or in a table form, so that tabular representation of the data is known as supply schedule. Supply schedule is of two types: individual supply schedule and market supply schedule. That means if we talk about individual supply schedule, that means we are talking about only one single seller. And if we are talking about the market supply schedule, that means there we are talking about more than one seller or more than one supplier. So individual supply schedule, it is a statement of the quantities of a commodity that an individual producer or seller is ready to sell at different prices. Yes, the statement in which we used to write the different quantities of a commodity where producers are ready to sell in market at different prices. तो ये सारा डेटा जहाँ भी हम लिखते हैं टेबल की फॉर्म में, तो वो कहलाता है आपका इंडिविजुअल सप्लाई शेड्यूल. The supply schedule is a table view of the relationship between the price suppliers are willing to sell a specific quantity of a good or service. That means supply schedule is a tabular representation of the data where we used to write the price of the goods and the quantity supplied at a particular period of time by the producers or suppliers. So this is the individual supply schedule and supply curve. So here you can see that prices is 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 and 80, and quantity supplied is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 and 30. So you can see that as soon as the price increases, the quantity supplied also increases. At rupees 30, the quantity supplied is 5, and at price of 80, the quantity supply is 30. So there is a direct or positive relationship between the price of the commodity and quantity supplied. So if we used to have a graph of this, then we can say x and y axis. On y axis there are prices, and on x axis there is quantity supplied. So here you can see the downward sloping line that is known as the supply curve. So when only one quantity is represented in a tabular form, so that is known as the individual supply schedule. Market supply schedule. It is a tabular statement showing different quantities of a commodity that all sellers are offering to consumers at different prices in the market during a given period of time. That means the tabular statement of a commodity where sellers are supplying the different commodities at different prices in a market during a given price, but there is more than one seller, not a single seller. As shown in the schedule, at price rupees 30, the quantity supplied by P is 5 units of a commodity X, whereas the quantity supplied by Q is 10 units, which results in 15 units as market supply. So that means as the price goes on increasing, similarly the supply also goes on increasing. So this is the diagrammatic representation of the market supply curve, where we have represented the three curves A, B and C. When we used to draw all these curves in a single graph, it is known as a market supply curve, and when we used to have a individual, that is known as an individual market supply curve. Clear? So here you can see there is a B supply curve and Q supply curve, right, and C supply curve. So C is the market supply curve. Why? Because we have combined A supply and B supply. So what is the total that we have represented in the C which is known as the market supply curve. It is similar as a market demand curve. Now here we are used to have a discussion of types of price elasticity of demand of supply. In price elasticity of demand, we have gone through that what is the response of change in price ड्यू टू चेंज इन डिमांड, कि अगर प्राइस 5% से कम होता है या बढ़ता है तो उसके रिस्पॉन्स में डिमांड में क्या चेंज आएगा. So we have studied about that extent, up to what extent there is a decrease or increase in the demand of a commodity. But in elasticity of supply, now we are going to have the extent up to which the price level of the commodity increases or decreases. So there are 5 types of price elasticity of supply: perfectly elastic, perfectly inelastic, unitary, relatively and relatively inelastic. The supply is said to be perfectly elastic when a small rise in price would result in supply to become infinite, while a small fall in price would result in a fall in supply to zero. It is also known as infinite elasticity, where the supply of the commodity is related with the slight change in the price of the commodity. This is shown by a straight line supply curve parallel to the horizontal x-axis. So here you can see the diagram. Perfectly elastic demand supply, that is y on, we have price on y-axis and quantity supplied on x-axis. So here you can see a direct horizontal line which represents the supply curve, and this situation is known as the perfectly elastic supply. In figure, the x-axis shows the quantity and y-axis shows the price. SS is the supply curve. The initial supply at price P is Q units. When the price is slightly increased, it leads to an increase in supply by amount, that is Q1. This shows perfectly elastic demand. So here you can see that from Q the supply is Q1, so the supply at the same price. So here we can see a straight line, and that straight line is known as the supply curve. Perfectly inelastic supply: when the supply does not change with the change in price, that means if the price of the commodity is 100 and the supply is not going to change due to change in price, so that situation is known as the perfectly inelastic supply. It means supply remains constant against any value of price in the market. For example, suppose the price of commodity is rupees 10, the supply is 200 units. As the price increases to 20, it will remain constant at 200 units. That means at 10 rupees there is a supply of 200 units, and at 20 rupees there is also a supply of 200 units. That means supply remains constant, but there is a change in the price of the commodity. Here is the graph. On Y we have represented price, and on X-axis we have represented the quantity supplied. So when the quantity increases when the price increases from P to P1, the supply of the commodity remains same, that is Q. So here you can see the straight line, which is known as the supply curve, and the situation is known as the perfectly inelastic supply. Unitary elastic supply. When the change in the supply of a commodity is in the same ratio as the change in the price, it is known as unitary elastic supply. That means there is a equality between the price of the quantity supplied and the quantity supplied. So this is known as the supply unitary elastic supply, कि जब price of the commodity और quantity supplied में एक सा change होता है, so that equal change is known as the unitary elastic supply. Suppose the price of a commodity is rupees 50 and the quantity supplied in a specific market is 200 units. As the price increases to rupees 55, its supply rises to 220 units. It implies the unitary elastic supply. That means there is an equal change in quantity supplied of goods with equal change in the price of a commodity. तो प्राइस और क्वांटिटी सप्लाइड के बीच का जो रेशियो होता है वो जब इक्वल होता है, सो दैट सिचुएशन इज नोन एज द यूनिटरी इलास्टिक सप्लाई. This is the diagram. When the price is P1, the quantity demanded is Q1, and when the price is P, the quantity demanded is Q. So you can see the gap between the Q and Q1. So this is known as the unitary elastic supply. Relatively elastic supply. Relatively elastic supply occurs when the proportionate change in supply is greater than proportionate change in price. इससे पहले में हमने क्या बात करी थी, that there is an equality between the proportionate change in price and proportionate change in supply. में जब equal होता है रेशियो तो वो यूनिटरी होती है, और रिलेटिवली इलास्टिक सप्लाई क्या होती है, व्हेन द प्रोपोर्शनेट चेंज इन सप्लाई इज मोर देन द प्रोपोर्शनेट चेंज इन प्राइस ऑफ द कमोडिटी, सो दैट सिचुएशन इज नोन एज द रिलेटिवली इलास्टिक सप्लाई. It means that there will be a greater change in supply due to small change in price. Suppose the price of a commodity is rupees 50 and quantity supplied is 200 units. At the price increases to rupees 55, its supply increases to this units. So that means कि जहाँ पर price का ratio quantity supplied से ज़्यादा होता है, so that is known as the relatively elastic supply. So this is the figure where P1 is the price and Q1 is the quantity supplied. So P to Q and from P1 to Q1 you can see a huge difference. So that is known as the relatively elastic supply. Now relatively inelastic supply. The supply is said to be relatively inelastic when a proportionate change in quantity supplied is less than proportionate change in price. That means there is a totally reverse of the previous situation. That means where the quantity supplied is less than the proportionate change in price. कि proportionate change in price के response में जब quantity supplied कम होती है, so that situation is known as the relatively inelastic supply. It means the greater change in price leads to a smaller change in quantity supplied, कि जहाँ पर price का ratio ज़्यादा होता है और quantity supplied का ratio कम होता है, तो उस situation को हम बोलते हैं relatively inelastic supply. Example, suppose the price of a commodity is rupees 50 and quantity supplied is 200 units. As the price increases to rupees 70, its supply increases to 220 units. Now you can see the difference that from price 50 there is 70, but the quantity supplied is there is only an increase of 20 units. So that means where the change in price leads to a smaller change in quantity supplied, so that situation is known as the relatively inelastic supply. So this is the diagram. In figure, x-axis shows the quantity and y-axis shows the price. SS is the supply curve. When the price is P, the quantity supplied is Q units. So this is the explanation of the figure. So this is all about for this lecture. Now we will meet in the next session of the managerial economics. Till then, take care, stay blessed and be happy. Thank you, class.